good morning or good evening, any part of the world you are privileged to be seeing and listening to this teaching this hour. My name is Femi and I want to be sharing my knowledge with you on the aspect of practical geography, which is essentially the aspect of map reading and interpretation. And the material that I want to be using in this teaching is this book that was written by me some times ago. The title of this book says Compendium Practical Geography, a simplified approach to map reading and interpretation. And inside this book, you also have workbook that will help your understanding. So I will just, if you are interested, you can place your order in the comment section and then you will get your copy. Thank you very much for your attention. Right now, the lecture is Learn Basic Map Reading and Interpretation with Mr. Femi. And these are the outline that I'm going to be walking you through in this video. You have basic essentials of a map, distance, direction and bearing, scales of a map, scale conversion, measurement of distance, map reading, map reduction and enlargement, conventional signs, and lots more. These are things basically that we are going to be looking at in this video. But before then, let me introduce geography to you for the sake of those that may not have some basic background in geography. So the objective of this session right now is that at the end of this session, you should be able to define geography, explain the meaning of map reading and interpretation, and mention at least 5 professional careers that require background in geography. Okay, what is geography? If you are asked what is geography, geography is derived from 2 Greek words, geo, which means earth, and graph, which means description. So basically, we can say that geography is the study or the description of the earth. But it does not end that way, because we don't just describe the earth. How do we describe the earth? We describe the earth by the people, activities, places and other physical features you can find on the earth. That is why we say geography is defined as the description of the earth and the study of the people, their activities, places, and other physical features of the earth. So what are the career professions that require background in geography? You can have it here. We have geophysics, we have geology, we have architecture, remote sensing, economics, history and international relations. We have nautical science, pilot, military studies, ecology, sociology, estate management, quantity surveying, urban and regional development, and etc. etc. So you can have all these professional careers as they require background in geography. Okay, now let's talk about map reading and interpretation. When we say map reading, basically what are we trying to say? Map reading is a study and the interpretation of topographical maps. It constitutes the practical aspect of geography, one of the practical aspects of geography. So then, topographical maps or topographical map is a map showing human and physical features of a particular area on a sheet of paper using appropriate scale. Okay, so then when we talk about the scale, the larger the scale of a map, the smaller the features that will be contained in that map. And conversely, the smaller the scale, the larger the quantity of the features that will be contained in that map. So the scale of a map shows the relationship between the distance you measure on the map and the actual ground distance. We are going to be dealing more of that in the the next video. So there are three main type of scale that I'm still going to be talking about in the next video. We have the linear scale, we have the statement scale, and we have the representative fraction. Let me just leave you with these three for now, and we are going to be dealing with more of that in the next video. So in summary, so far we said that geography is the description of the earth and the study of the people, their activities, places, and other physical features in the earth. And I also said that map reading is the study and interpretation of topographical maps. And the career professions that we can find that have their background in geography consist of geology, geophysics, geography itself, urban and regional planning, ecology, estate management, quantity surveying, pilot and nautical sciences, and etc. etc. So I have a little assessment for you which I would like you to attempt, which I called the end of session assessment. I want you to tell me what you have learned so far. Tell me what you understand by geography, what you understand by the term map reading, and then I want you to mention at least 5 career professions that have their background in geography. Send your answer to this email, practicalgeographylectures@gmail.com. practicalgeographylectures@gmail.com. If you are just seeing this video for the first time, I would like you to follow up on YouTube, Compendium Practical Geography, or on Facebook, and on Facebook as Femi Agbakosi. That is my official Facebook page, Femi Agbakosi. You can follow me up for more of this video, and on YouTube is Compendium Practical Geography. Thank you very much. So we continue from there. Now this is video 2, this is session 2, and what we are going to be learning in this session is distance, direction, and bearing. And at the end of this session, you should be able to mention all types of cardinal points and mention them. Mention all the types of cardinal points and mention them, name them. Number 2, at the end of this session as well, you should be able to describe the direction and bearing of a feature from one another. Now let's start with direction. Okay, let's start from direction. Now, what is direction? Direction of a place or a feature on a map is in relation to one another, and it can be determined with the use of the 4 cardinal points. However, the knowledge of the 8th cardinal point is also useful in this concept. Before I show you the cardinal points, let's talk about distance so that we marry the two together. What is distance? Distance is the gap between 2 points on a map. So measurement of a distance on the map can be done in two basic ways. Number 1 is as the crow flies, then number 2 along a curved path. Now, as the crow flies, when we say as the crow flies, what does it mean? When we say as the crow flies, it means along a straight line. But when we say on a curved path, it can be on a river path, it can be on a footpath, it can be on a road, it can be on a railway line, and etc. etc. In either way, there are different methods of measuring distance on the map. There are different methods that you use to measure this on the map using the scale, and we are going to be looking at that. If you are to determine a distance of the distance of 2 points from one another on the map along a straight line rather, you can just use your ruler straight away. You will get it. And if you are to measure the distance of a place along a curved path, such as river path, such as road or railway line or footpath, you will need an inextensible thread, a thread that is non-elastic, non-elastic thread. So you will use it to measure the distance along the footpath or along the curved path, either road or riverbed or whatever. You will use it. So, and we now use it to extend it on your ruler to determine the 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 the, the centimeter or whatever you are using as your scale. Now let's look at the types of cardinal points. The types of cardinal points. Basically, there are three types of cardinal points that we use in practical geography. Number one that we have the 4 cardinal points. Number 2, we have the 8 cardinal points. Then number 3, we have the 16 cardinal points. And each of these at different levels are very useful. But basically, in secondary school or year one geography, we only limit it to the 4 and 8 cardinal points. So let's look at the cardinal point. So at first, you have the 4 cardinal points which are in bold form. You have the north, you have the south here. At your left, you have the west. At your right, you have the east. That is the basic 4 cardinal points. So you divide each of these into 2 further points. And you have the, in between the north and east, you have the northeast. In between the south and east, you have the southeast. In between the south and west, you have the southwest. And in between the west and north, you have the northwest. Alright, that is the 8th cardinal point. Now going to 16 cardinal point, you have to divide each of the 8 cardinal point into another two cardinal points, so that it can give rise to 16 cardinal points. And these are they. We have in between the northeast and north, you have the northeast. In between the northeast and east, you have the east northeast. In between the east and southeast, you have the east southeast. In between the southeast and south, you have the south southeast. Then in between the south and southwest, you have the south southwest. In between the southwest and west, you have the west southwest. In between the west and the northwest, you have the west northwest. And in between the west, in between the northwest and the north, you have the north northwest. These are the 16 cardinal points. So basically, don't forget, we have the 3 basic types of cardinal points. The first one is the 4 cardinal points. The second one is the 8 cardinal point, and the last one is the 16 cardinal point. So look at this example by your right. It says in the figure below, the direction of P from O is southwestern direction, while the direction of Q from O is northwestern direction. Look at Q here, look at O here. From here you have your P. Now, the direction of P, of P, then from O. So the idea here, the concept is that when you hear the direction of, the word of is telling you, in quote, what you need to determine. The direction of what you need to determine. Then when you hear from is telling you where you need to put your cardinal point. So when they say from O, that means you need to put your cardinal point on O. If they say from P, you need to put your cardinal point on P. But in this case, they said from O, which means you need to put your cardinal point on O. So putting your cardinal point on O, the direction of P from O is southwestern direction. And the direction of Q from O is northwestern direction. Okay, then let's talk about bearing. Bearing, when we talk about bearing, we are talking about the angle angular distance or angular position of a place from a particular reference point. Now, bearing can be determined or measured using a compass or a prismatic compass when you are on the field. But on map, bearing can be measured using a protractor, and protractor is that semicircular instrument in your mathematical set. So bearing is usually expressed in degrees when you measure it from the true north in a clockwise direction. Don't forget, bearing is always measured in a clockwise direction from the true north. Bearing is measured in a clockwise direction from the true north. Now, having that in mind, let us look at this example. Study the figure below. What is the direction and the bearing of K from Y? When you hear of K from Y, it tells you where you need to put your cardinal point from Y. You put your cardinal point on Y. Now look at this. But before we even treat the example, look at the cardinal point, look at the bearing. This is your north, and your north corresponds to 0, 0, 0 degree, and from there you can move in this clockwise direction. Northeast corresponds to 22.5 degree. Then northeast corresponds to 45 degree, and east-northeast corresponds to 67.5 degree. Your east corresponds to 90 degree. East-southeast corresponds to 112.5 degree. Southeast corresponds to 135 degree. South-southeast corresponds to 157.5, which is 157.5 degree. Your south corresponds to 180 degree. The south-southwest corresponds to 202 degree, 202.5 degree. Southwest corresponds to 225 degree. West-southwest corresponds to 247.5 degree. West corresponds to 270 degree. West-northwest corresponds to 292 degree, and a half degree. The northwest corresponds to 315 degree. North-northwest corresponds to 337.5 degree. And finally, the north direction also corresponds to 360 degree. So it is only north direction that assume two separate values. North direction corresponds to 0 degree, and it also corresponds to 360 degree. So depending the way you want to measure it. So now, like I was saying, this is your Y, this is your K. They ask you, they said, what is the direction and the bearing of K from Y? So you have to put your cardinal point on Y. So when you put it on Y, which is this one, you put your 4 cardinal point here, and then you turn your protractor, that semicircular object in your mathematical set. You turn it in this direction where your 0, your protractor is calibrated from 0 on your left to 180 on your right? So what you do is you turn your protractor so that the 0 degree on your protractor at your left will coincide with the 0 degree in the north direction, and then you measure like this. So you can see from what we have here that the direction of K from Y is southeastern direction. And if you use your protractor to measure very accurately, you will see that the bearing of K from Y is 110 degree southeast. That is the bearing. It is written as this. You write your S first, then you write the bearing value, and then you put the east, which is southeast, 110 degrees southeast. So now, end of session summary. Let us summarize what we have said so far in the first video session and the second video session. I said that geography is a description of the earth and the study of their people and their activities, places, and other physical features in the earth. I also said that map reading is the study and interpretation of topo map. Topo map means topographic map. And I mentioned also that the professional careers that have background in geography include estate management, quantity surveying, urban and regional planning, geology, geophysics, nautical science, pilot, and etc. etc. Then we also talk about bearing. That bearing is the angular position of an object from a particular reference point. And then we have this one. So, and I want you to note the following, that to determine the direction of a bearing of a place or a feature, always put your 4 cardinal points on the reference. If they are asking you to make your reference, for example, the example we did last time, when they said what is the direction of K from Y, the direction of K from Y, what they are asking you to do is to put your reference point on Y, because Y begins the journey. Y is the start, is the reference point for that assignment. So Y is where you put your 4 cardinal points, and that is what we are trying to say. So that is the end of session. So I want you to tell me what you've learned so far in this session. So test your understanding. What do you understand? I want you to mention all the types of cardinal points that we have in practical geography. I want you to mention them, and I want you also to put it in the comment section what you understand by each of those cardinal points. Then also look at this. We have a limestone mine site here. We have Tampa village. We have it here. We have Kagawa community here. Then we have Ansarudin Central Mosque here. Now they are asking you, what is the direction of Tampa village from Kagawa? Then what is the direction of limestone mine site from Tampa village? And the last one is, what is the direction of Kagawa from limestone mine site? Send your answer to practicalgeographylectures@gmail.com. Thank you for your attention. The second one is this. Test your understanding. What exactly do you understand? This is a puzzle for you, a worksheet, and it consists of all the 16 cardinal points. I want you to attempt it. If possible, assign the value, their appropriate value in each of these boxes. Don't forget that your northern direction, your north direction, corresponds to 0, 0, degree, and your south, just as an S-pole, your south is a 180 degree, and your east northeast is your 67.5 degree, as you find it here. So fill the remaining puzzle and send your answer to practicalgeographylectures@gmail.com. Thank you for your attention. I will see you in my next video. Thank you.